Welcome to InCabin from the creators of AutoSense. InCabin connects the global community of automotive interior specialists working on in-cabin safety, comfort, and productivity solutions through industry-leading events and knowledge sharing. Today we are speaking with Javier Salado, product manager at Anyverse. And Javier, welcome back to InCabin. Good to see you, friend.
Hi, Carl. Thank you very much for inviting me again to talk to you and explain what we do in the world of InCabin.
I love it. I love it. And let's start with that. A high level overview, if you will. Tell us more about the work that Anyverse is doing today.
Sure. For those in our audience that have already seen other videos or attended the AutoSense and InCabin conferences in the past, they probably know us. But let me give you a very quick intro of who we are at Anyverse and what we do. We are a software company. We're founded in 2018. It comes from another company. Anyverse is a spin-off of another company that was founded in 1998 called Next Limit that excelled in its history, developing 3D computer generated software like a render and a lot of simulation software that has been used extensively in the entertainment industry, for example, and in the industry as well. After some time, the management decided that they could put all that technology, all that simulation technology, all that rendering technology to the service of generating synthetic images to help perception system developers to train and validate the models that they build, basically. The lack of data is something that everybody knows in this space. So it made sense to try to generate those images using computer graphics technology, which is what we excel at, and adding on top of that, very physically correct simulation of light, camera, and everything in the environment. So that's what Anyverse does. We develop products, basically a platform that help any perception system developer to generate the data that they need the way they need it, with a very accurate physical simulation.
And Javier, with that backstory, with that history, let's talk about the role of synthetic data, just in a general sense. So, what is the role of synthetic data when it comes to in-cabin perception system validation and that process?
Great question here. Actually, we have seen that the use of synthetic data is just starting to shift a little bit from training to validation of the system. Why is this? Over the years, the perception developers have started gathering thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of images to train their systems. So the lack of data is not that much these days in the training space. There's always need, because you need some corner cases that you cannot get in real world or that are more difficult to generate, and we can help with that. But in the validation space, what we see is that when all the players that are involved in bringing a perception system all the way to the car where it's going to be running, and I'm talking about InCabin, okay? All those players, the tier ones that develop the models, the ones that integrate into the bigger systems of the car, and the final OEMs that basically have to put it in the car and ship it, they need to validate at every stage if that perception system is working well in the new conditions that they are in the whole process. And validation, first of all, everybody has to agree. What are we going to validate? What are the KPIs of the perception system that we are going to to measure and make sure that are correct. And then how do we get? Basically, you have to take the perception system at whatever stage it is and show it an image or a video and record what is the output of that perception system, and then compare it with the KPIs and decide if the perception system passes that validation or not. And I described it very simply, but here we have to not only face the system with one image or one video, but with hundreds probably. And deciding what are those hundreds of images that the system has to pass in every stage, it's difficult. The first driver for that is the regulations out there that the European Union or the US bodies basically define for the safety of the overall car, right? Or of the overall vehicle. Well, part of that, it's the driver monitoring, occupant monitoring, child detection, and there are stipulated what are the things that this driver monitoring system have to understand. How the child presence system detect if there is a child and where the child is. So to fulfill all those regulations, there are documents describing what are the scenarios that the perception system needs to understand. And that includes lots of things, like how the driver is looking at different places, what kind of look is it using, owl or lizard. All this is described in the documentation. Now, how do you get data for all those cases described in the documentation? Very difficult to do it in the real world, and very difficult to, if you even get it from the real world, that it's homogeneous, that one OEM may use one set of data, another one, another set of data, even more. A tier one may use a set of data, and then the OEM, a different set of data. What we try to do with synthetic data is homogenize this and be able to generate the data for all the validation cases that are needed.
So Javier, with that background, that in a general sense, what we've been talking about, let's zero in now. How does Anyverse approach this in-cabin perception system validation process?
For us, what we can do with our technology is generate the data that you need the way you need it. So to do it as accurately as possible and in as an easy way as possible for the end users, we're starting to leverage new technology that I'm sure all the audience have heard about, generative AI, to using the description that we have in the regulation documentation, plus some additional images if we can provide to the generative AI. That generative AI will basically generate, and we are training models of generative AI from our partner Google. So we're working with Gemini, and we are training Gemini to generate not an image of what the regulation describes, because generative AI generated images are not physically correct and are not exactly what the perception system is going to face in real life. So these are not good for validation, not whatsoever. So what we want the generative AI to generate is a configuration that our platform will understand and will generate a synthetic scene that we will later render using the sensor of the final customer. That means that they're going to have all the use cases described in the documentation with images or videos automatically generated based on those descriptions, but simulating the sensors and the interiors of the specific OEMs that need to do the validation. For the tier ones, we can do exactly the same, but it may be in a previous stage where they don't know for sure still what is the final sensor, but that's okay. They can generate different samples and different validation data with the pre-sensors that they may be using to develop the perception system and still do some kind of validation. But every validation process, it's always a loop, right? Because you don't get the okay at the first time. So what we can do is that when the validation fails, we take those images that we generated, we take those videos, and with the help of generative AI, we can refine them and generate another configuration script that will go through our platform and will render a new image with the problems that that we saw after the validation, to fix them and help fine-tune the system to start with, so the tier ones or whoever is developing the system can fine-tune that and then generate more data to run the validation. So that's our approach, and that's a big leap forward for us, because we're opening new interfaces to work with our technology, and these interfaces are going to be much more easy to use, like basic natural language or specific images that you can feed the system, and we will generate synthetic data based on that, which makes the life much easier for everyone and shortens these loops of validation, which at the end of the day is time and money for the tier ones and the OEMs. And that's our goal.
We've been speaking today with Javier Salado, product manager at Anyverse. Javier, thank you for being with us, for sharing your insight, especially into generative AI, sharing your thought leadership there. We look forward to seeing you in Barcelona. But in the meantime, thank you for being with us, friend.
You're welcome, Carl. It's always a pleasure. I'll see you in Barcelona.
Yes, we'll see you in Barcelona. And for more information on Anyverse and to find out more about our upcoming events, see the links in the description. And for more in-depth interviews like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel and join the InCabin community on LinkedIn. In Detroit, on behalf of InCabin, I'm Carl Anthony.